She told everyone I cheated first, but forgot about the screenshot saved in my cloud. It started with a toast that wasn't for me. We were at Dennis's birthday, the kind of crowded, humid apartment party where the windows fog and the speakers sweat out throwback playlists. I was halfway through a paper plate of store-bought cake when Lena tapped a spoon against a champagne flute and said, "One quick thing," in that breezy tone that makes people quiet before they know why. She didn't even look at me first. She looked at them. Our friends, her yoga crew, his coworkers, the couple with the new baby. And then she said my full name and told them I had cheated on her. The syllables flattened in the air. Someone laughed, reflex only, then choked. I set the plate on the radiator and waited for the punchline. There wasn't one. "I kept this to myself for weeks," she said, with a tremor I recognized from arguments, the tremor that always made me apologize first. I tried to work through it. He said I was crazy. Picture me trying to sleep while he's texting her with the phone face down. There were phones in hands now. Dennis stepped forward with a confused, protective host expression, then stopped when she lifted her own phone and, like an MC, scrolled to a screenshot. "I'm not here to humiliate anyone. I'm here because lies make you sick," she said, and a dozen heads tilted in the animal motion of people hunting for an angle, a reflection on glass, a proof. She held up the screen, a chat app, my name, blue bubbles, ellipses of sarcasm lined up like bullet holes. "You said you were at the gym," a bubble from me. "I'll be at yours after," then a kissing emoji. The room made a soft, synchronized sound. I tried to speak and my mouth opened and stayed that way. It looked like me. It read like the worst version of me, the shorthand I'd never use even by mistake. "Lena," I said finally. We've done the private part," she said. "You said, show me evidence. And then you moved the goalposts. So here." She swiped to more. Avatarless DMs, timestamps. My spine started to hum, the way it does before a fever. "If anyone thinks I'm lying," she added, and this time she looked at me, "I'll forward the whole thing." Dennis put a hand on my shoulder that said, "Say nothing." Someone whispered, "Wow," and someone else whispered, "I knew it," and a friend of hers I barely knew started patting her back with a possessive little rhythm, like encouraging a performer through stage fright. I don't remember leaving the party, only having left it, standing at the curb with a plate in my hand I didn't own, then setting it on the hood of a stranger's car because the sugar smell had begun to nauseate me. By the time I got home, the story had already learned to walk without us. I had 3 missed calls from my mother, an HR email with a bland subject line about conduct expectations, and 2 messages from people who began with, "Hey man, not my business," and then made it their business for 7 paragraphs. The group chat where we planned trips went mute to me. My message box a gray ghost that said, "Only admins can send messages." I wandered the apartment the way you do when you've misplaced your keys and then realize it's not your keys you've lost but a place to stand. I kept telling myself you don't get dizzy from lies. You get dizzy from believing them. A perverse little voice kept listing my infractions anyway. Flirting at a bar once. 2 friendly emojis. Not telling her the trainer at the gym had DM'd a video of my form. Cheating is a shapeshifter, she'd said in the past when we argued about definitions. And tonight her voice in my head was armed with an audience. I showered and couldn't feel the water. I opened the fridge and stared until the light turned itself off. When I finally sat at my desk, the desk that used to be ours, I opened my laptop without intention. Maybe I wanted to see a normal tab, a bank site, an old draft, anything that proved my life had settings I could restore. The machine woke to a scatter of windows like after a storm. The code editor from work, a recipe page, a calendar invite for Monday. Behind them, a Finder window I didn't remember leaving open sat like a quiet neighbor. It said Cloud Archive, shared/legacy. The name rang with old dust. Legacy was what we'd called the shared folder for the tablet we bought during the pandemic when Lena was into Procreate, and I was annotating PDFs like a grad student. We'd split passwords after a while, then split ways of coping, then split the tablet itself, hers, with a sticky note that said, "PLs disable autosync," the kind of note you leave after you think you've already done the thing. We never checked. I clicked. The folder opened on a subfolder maze, dull and intimate. 2023-12, 2024-01, 2024-05. Inside, raw photos, voice memo clips, screenshots, so many screenshots, little rectangles of captured friction. I didn't know what I was looking for until the moment I saw it. A file named IMG_2024-07-14_chat. PNG. July 14th, the date her voice had weaponized at the party. "You said you were at the gym." "Open," I whispered, as if I were telling a mouth to speak. The image bloomed. Same chat app, same blue bubbles, same nasty line. At first, my chest seized because the file looked like the twin of what she'd held up. And there it was. My name, my voice faked into a creepy wink. Then my eyes did the little zoom they learned at work. Metadata corners, edges of the crop, the status bar. The places where truth leaves breadcrumbs. There were slivers of UI that didn't match my phone. Battery indicator just a hair off. A font weight I had updated months before. The dot over the I in the app name a different shape. At the bottom edge, a white line where the crop hadn't been perfect. It wasn't proof, not yet. It was a feeling. The first oxygen in hours. I clicked to get info. The sidebar flared. Size, dimensions, creation date. July 14th, 2241. Then another line. Original device. iPad OS. Our old tablet had loved to stamp its name on things. I clicked the parent folder and saw other files with the same night smell. A screen recording where the cursor slips a pixel over the send button. A second chat. Ping named with a clumsy underscore final suffix. Another with crop 2. I scrolled up and found a folder named Stories Drafts and a text file called breakup underscore notes underscore V3. Text. My heart punched my ribs. Inside, bullet points like stage directions. Tell Dennis first privately. He'll believe. If he denies, show Jim text. Don't over-explain. Say, I'm not crazy, don't gaslight me. A line at the bottom in hurried letters. Remember to disable autosync. The cursor blinked over it like a tiny metronome, keeping time with my pulse. I didn't feel vindicated. Not yet. I felt like someone had nudged open a door I'd been leaning against for hours. And instead of relief, there was a dark hallway behind it. I scrolled back to the chat image and traced one bubble with the mouse. The blue wasn't my blue. It was the default. The one I changed months ago because Lena said the darker shade made text easier to read at night. I thought about the party, the rhythm of her speech, the way she borrowed the words we used in therapy, gaslight, accountability, safe, and stacked them like alphabet blocks into a tower she could stand on. I thought about Ole, who would call in the morning and say, "Talk to me, man," with that careful patience that makes you more tired. I thought about HR's email sitting like a pebble in my inbox shoe. I thought about Lena's face when she said, "I'm not here to humiliate anyone," and how honest she looked. The archive window sat beside my messages app like two televisions in a shop window, past and present flickering at the same time. A new message previewed on my screen from an unsaved number. If what she said is true, you need help. I clicked the little crescent moon. Not now. I opened the July folder again and let my scroll wheel find its own speed. Geotagged photos from the week we hiked Hoverla. The EXIF said UTC +3 and gave coordinates of a ridge we camped on. A receipt PDF from a coffee shop in town, time-stamped for the afternoon I was supposedly at hers after. Calendar invites, the kind the app auto-exports. Client sync, Zoom, with a time that overlapped eerily with the kiss emoji screenshot. None of it was a court case. All of it felt like the bones of one growing under the skin. I dragged a handful of files into a new folder and named it quietly, Timeline. My hands shook the way they do after you've carried something heavy farther than you meant to. I didn't plan to post anything. I didn't plan at all. I just sat there cataloging the way an exhausted parent keeps folding laundry long after midnight, because the motion feels like it might keep the world from tilting. Around 3, I remembered the sticky note. I went to the drawer where we kept cables and found it, folded under a dead charger. Pulse disable autosync, her handwriting, a little heart doodle in the corner like a period. I held the note and felt nothing noble. No righteous fury. Just grief for the kind of trust that lets two people share a tablet like a cutting board, and for the version of me that thought the worst thing we'd ever use screenshots for would be a meme. I slept on the couch with the laptop open next to me, the archive's pale list glowing like an aquarium in a dark room. Sometime near dawn, the city's pipes coughed awake and someone down the hall slammed a door, and I sat up with the kind of clarity that isn't energy so much as a ceasefire in your blood. I wasn't going to beg anyone to believe me. I wasn't going to build a spectacle to counter hers. But I was going to make a record for the people whose opinions could still put air back in my lungs. I made coffee that tasted like cardboard and created a read-only folder called truth_zip and started adding the least dramatic files. Raw originals, no arrows, no circles, no emojis. The chat image, the version history, the screen recording where the cursor trembled a little like a hand. The calendar invite for the hour she said I was at the gym, with my face in a tiny thumbnail talking to a client about a bug ticket. When the bird outside my window tried a few expensive notes, my phone lit the room again. Another message from HR. Flagged high priority. A DM from a mutual friend. She's posting again. Are you going to respond? I stared at the question like it was written in a language I used to speak and had forgotten. Then, almost as an afterthought, I noticed a tab behind the archive window that had come back to life when the laptop woke. It was a cloud app, a web view I hadn't used in months, logged into an account I barely remembered. In the corner, a small banner blinked. Sync complete. 3 new items from design. I clicked without thinking. 3 files appeared, latest first, in a folder called /2024-08/design/. The newest was named proof_final. PSD. The file opened with a hesitation, like it knew it was dangerous. My laptop wheezed, Photoshop booted, and the layered document flickered into focus. I hadn't opened a PSD in years, not since I half-heartedly mocked up UI ideas for the startup before the designers told me to stick to code. But the bones of it were still familiar. The Layers panel bloomed open on the right. Background, chat box, overlay heart emoji, blur rectangle, crop to. I clicked each one like defusing a bomb. With every eye icon toggled, the illusion unraveled. Beneath the blur rectangle was a piece of text that didn't match the bubble above it. Draft, rewrite later. Above it, the heart emoji floated on its own transparent layer. Pixel perfect, named exactly like a file you'd drag from an icon pack. The timestamp in the corner wasn't flattened. It was editable text, still highlighted from whoever last worked on it. And then there were the properties. Metadata whispered louder than Lena ever had. Edited. August 2nd, 2024, 23:08. Created with Adobe Photoshop 24.5. Original device, iPad OS. Same tablet. Same careless oversight. I leaned back in my chair, the room spinning not with vindication but vertigo, because this wasn't just a sloppy fake anymore. It was a workshop of fakes, a studio of counterfeits carefully prepped for deployment. I scrolled through the parent folder. Alongside prooffinal.psd were earlier versions. Proof Draft 1, Proof Draft 2, Proof Alt Font. Each held its own anatomy lesson in deception. One draft had a note layer, literally a post-it graphic with her handwriting scrawled, "Remember to line up status bar." Another included a cropped photo of me, ripped from a work call, dropped in like a sticker. I closed the document before my breakfast could climb back up my throat. But I didn't delete it. Instead, I slid it into the timeline folder, a quarantine zone of horrors, each file its own sealed vial of poison. My mouse hovered over compressed to ZIP. I didn't click yet. I needed to breathe. The next morning, I tried to move through the city like a regular person. I shaved. I put on a shirt that didn't smell like old coffee. I sat in a meeting and said words about sprint velocity that even sounded like me. But my colleagues' faces carried a static charge, a quiet recoil. When one of them muted their mic but didn't turn off the camera, I caught them saying to someone off-screen, "Yeah, that's him. HR called me in after lunch." They'd received multiple concerns. Their tone was managerial neutral, the way people talk when they've already chosen a side, but want you to pick up the rope they're about to hang you with. "There are allegations," the rep said, "of inappropriate conduct, both personal and potentially professional. We're not drawing conclusions," which meant they already had. "But we need to give you the chance to respond." "Respond to what exactly?" I asked, my throat dry. The rep flipped a file, paper, not digital, which meant Lena had thought about optics. On top, a printed screenshot. My name in familiar blue, words I'd never written. I wanted to laugh, but it came out as something closer to a cough. "Do you know what metadata is?" I asked. They blinked. Not the right audience. "Look," I said, pressing my hands flat on the table to stop them from trembling. "If you want me to answer, give me dates and times. I'll provide you with my calendar logs, call records, even badge swipes into the office. But I won't sit here and defend myself against forged pictures." The rep frowned. "You're saying she fabricated these?" "I'm saying I can prove it." The word hung between us. Proof. Prooffinal.psd. The meeting ended with a vague promise to review documentation, which in HR language meant I was on borrowed time. That night, Ole called. He didn't bother with small talk. "Man, she's telling people you hit on her coworker at the bar. Said you cornered her." I nearly dropped the phone. "I don't even know her coworkers." "I know," he said, "but people are nodding along. You need to do something." I told him about the archive. Not everything, not yet. Just enough to hear his silence turn into sharp breathing. "Max, you're sitting on dynamite," he said. "If you don't use it, you're letting her bury you alive." I closed my eyes. I could still see the Photoshop layers. The lonely heart emoji floating on a transparent background, waiting to be weaponized. "I don't want to blow anyone up," I said. Then at least stop letting her sharpen the knife. After we hung up, I stared at the glowing folders. I renamed Timeline to Truth. Then Truth to Truth _zip. Then I right-clicked and set permissions. Read only. But still, I hesitated, because using it meant no going back. Using it meant saying out loud that the woman I'd loved had drafted a script of my downfall before she ever accused me. Near midnight, my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number again. We all know what you did. Just confess. I closed my eyes, clicked into the archive once more, and dragged every file into the truth folder. When the progress bar finished, I whispered to myself, if she wants a trial, she'll get one. And then, like a curse, I saw a new file syncing in real time, freshly uploaded from her device. Its name glowed at the top of the list. Witness_statement.docs. Would you like me to continue with part 3, approximately 5,000 characters, keeping the same style and building toward the HR confrontation and the private showdown with friends? The document opened like a stage cue. I clicked it, and Word tried to wrap its calm blue ribbon around something feral. Witnessstatement.docx wasn't even subtle. Name redacted, attest that on July 14th I witnessed Max engaging in inappropriate behavior with a woman, not his partner, at bar P-. The fill-in-the-blank anonymity gave itself away before the prose did. There were bracketed instructions inside the text like footprints left by a director. Add sensory detail. Music too loud. Smell of gin. Avoid exact time if unsure. End with, I didn't want to get involved, but I can't be silent. The footer said, Doc owner. Lena. iPad. Track changes was off, but the comments bubble had a ghostly line. Resolved by Lena. When I flipped to info, the last edit synced from iPad OS 8 minutes ago. I didn't realize I was shaking until my mouse skittered and selected half a paragraph. I breathed and scrolled up through the directory tree like climbing rungs out of a well. There was a folder called /prep/ stuffed with small tactical files, templated DMs, hey, I hate drama, but a spreadsheet titled rolloutcontacts.xlsx with a 2-column matrix, name, and angle. Under my name and her color-coded tags, it said, deny attack reverse. He'll get logical. Frame logic as coldness. Next to Dennis. Appeal to loyalty. Mention how he's always protected me. Next to Ole. He likes facts. Show proof. If he wavers, say I'm scared. There was even a note for my mother. She worries about being embarrassed. Use I wanted to tell you first. I clicked things I shouldn't have been able to see and felt no triumph. Only a nauseous understanding of how small a lie needs to be if you make the room big enough around it. A subfolder called /alt_ drafts /held 3 more PSDS and a series of PNGs with edges that didn't align and fonts that moved when you zoomed in. There was an export labeled proof_altfont.png where the timestamp used a system font my phone hadn't carried since an update in May. Another proofcropped2.png had the battery icon from the tablet's theme kit. In the corner, a faint seam where the status bar had been pasted. In /chats, I found what undid me. A series of screenshots of Lena's telegram with a pinned contact, Nikita. At first, the tiles were innocuous. Memes, playlists, a hotel lobby selfie with a caption, Workshop Day 2, send coffee. Then, an audio waveform. The app had done me a kindness. It generated a machine transcript preview in tiny gray type. Once it comes out, I'll be free. He'll look like the one who, the line truncated as if embarrassed. I clicked open. I couldn't play it. I stared at the static wave and heard silence anyway. The kind that screams, I told myself I wasn't collecting this to hurt her. I told myself I was building a record for when someone in a room with fluorescent lighting asked me to explain my life in 5 minutes. But a meaner voice said I was also finally refusing to drown. Oli texted, you up? Then 5 seconds later, without waiting for an answer, she DM'd Ira with a heads up about you. Ira's pissed at the manipulation, but it's messy. I sent him a single photo. The layers panel with overlay _ heart _ emoji highlighted, the cursor hovering so you could see it wasn't flattened. He called immediately. Max, he said, voice low, as if the phone line could leak. We need to bring this to people who matter. Not the mob. The ones who will stop repeating her. I'm not posting, I said. I can't build a bonfire just to see by it. Then we do a living room version, he said. 5 people. No screenshots on Instagram. You show them the originals and the metadata. You don't insult her. You ask for silence. Not complicity. Silence. I wanted to say no. I wanted to say yes. Both felt like giving something away. I'll put together a clean timeline, I said instead. No arrows, just files. While we spoke, a little notification bubble slid down. New email. HR, follow-up. I opened it after we hung up. The phrasing was colder than yesterday's, the kind of template you can feel even when it's been massaged by a human. We have received additional testimony relevant to your case. Please attend a meeting at 10 o'clock on Thursday with HR and a third-party colleague willing to provide context. They'd attached the printed screenshot again, as if pixels gain integrity through repetition. I stared at the clock and calculated 36 hours. Enough time to make my own version of the truth that didn't scream. I built it like a silent room, a new folder called Timeline with subfolders named by date. 2024-07-14 slash 2024-08-02 slash into 2024-07-14. I dropped the raw chat.png, the screen recording, the calendar.ics export, the Zoom cloud link with the thumbnail in which my face was mid-sentence, eyebrows uneven, the way they are when I'm explaining something tedious. Into 2024-08-02, I dropped proof_final.psd and its siblings, careful to preserve their modification times. I exported the properties panes as PDFs, not annotated. Just their own dry bureaucracies speaking aloud. From the archives/2024-05/hotel_receipts/I pulled booking_05-18.pdf. A line item. Deluxe, 2 nights, 2 guests, with a masked card that didn't match mine. I didn't add it to the first wave. It felt like a loaded gun in a drawer. I wasn't here to shoot. At some point, my mother called again. I picked up because avoiding her had begun to feel like lying. "Sweetheart," she said, using the voice for scraped knees and missed trains. She didn't ask if it was true. She asked if I was eating. She asked why Lena had called her. She said she didn't want me to hear rumors, my mother said, brittle. I told her I had documents. I told her I would show them to anyone who needed to see. "I don't need to see," she said. "I need you to sleep." I promised like a child. Dennis texted a group of 6 of us. Me, him, Ira, 2 other mutuals, and 1 person I didn't know he'd include until I saw the name. Svetlana. The one with the baby, the one who had said wow at the party with a sympathy that had cut. "Tonight," Dennis wrote, "my place. No phones on counters. If anyone records, they leave." There was courage and theater in his message. I took both. Before I left, I made a zip_truth_zip.zip. I set it to read-only, generated a view-only link, and put it in a plain text file titled readme.txt that said, "This is not an argument. This is a log. Please don't forward. If you need to talk to me, call." On the way to Dennis's, I stopped at the small coffee shop where half our social life had been negotiated over flat whites. The barista who knows our names pretended not to. Or maybe she didn't see me. The city had decided to look at me all at once and not at all, like a stranger you almost recognize in a mirror. Dennis opened the door before I knocked. "We're not here to pick sides," he said, which is what people say when sides have already been picked and they're trying to light a lamp over the line. We put our phones in a bowl like keys at a dinner party. I opened my laptop and, hands steady now, walked them through a story without adjectives. The chat image first, not to shock, just to calibrate. Metadata. Device. The iPad fingerprint that kept showing up like an involuntary tick. The screen recording with the cursor jitter. The PSD with layers toggled on and off, so you could see how a timestamp becomes a weapon when you forget to flatten it. I didn't speak Lena's name unless I had to. I said, "This file, this device, this date." Ira, practical, leaned forward. "Why would she?" She stopped herself, not ready to complete the verb. "Okay, keep going." Svetlana put a fist against her mouth and watched the mouse pointer as if it might tell her who to forgive. One of the others, Pavlo, kept glancing at the bowl of phones like his would ring with a version of events that cleared us all. When it was over, no one hugged me. It was better than that. They were quiet, not with accusation but with uncomfortable reconsideration. Dennis said, simply, "I'm sorry." Ira said, "I reposted her story. I'll take it down. I won't post yours." It landed exactly where I wanted. Svetlana rubbed at a spot on the table that didn't exist. "She messaged me before this," she said. "She said if you showed tech stuff, it was because you're manipulative and know how to make anything look real." She looked at me, checking if I understood that the ground does not stop moving just because you've laid a path. "But also," she said softer, "she sent me a file to share if needed. A statement from someone at your work." "Witness," I said. The word fell between us like a coin. "She's queued up for HR on Thursday." We sat in that knowledge a moment. Then Dennis exhaled through his nose and stood up, signaling the meeting was over in the way hosts do, closing the laptop for you. "We won't fight your war," he said. But we won't fight for her either. That's all I can promise. It was enough. On my way out, Ira touched my sleeve. If she's capable of this, she said, voice small, she'll escalate. Be ready. I was, I told myself. Then I went home and discovered she already had. The cloud banner pulsed again. New upload. A PNG called bank_proof.png and a second file, a PDF named complaint_draft_hr.pdf. My email chimed a beat later with a calendar invite from HR. Meeting updated. Additional attendee confirmed. The name on the attendee line made my throat close. Someone from my own team. A person who, on July 14th, had been in the Zoom square beside mine. I didn't open the files right away. I sat in the dark with my laptop screen breathing at me, daring me to click. The glow from the notification banner cut across the room like a slit of interrogation light. My hands hovered over the keys and I realized I was waiting, absurdly, for Lena to stop, for the uploads to reverse, the file names to vanish, for some glitch in the cloud to admit this was all a fever dream. Nothing disappeared. The files waited, patient as snakes. Bankproof.png opened to the familiar sterile interface of my banking app, or at least the kind of facsimile that would convince a quick glance. My name at the top, blurred account numbers beneath, a transaction highlighted in yellow. Hotel Royal. 2 guests, 3,800 UAH, dated July 15th. The morning after the supposed gym text, there was even a little red circle drawn around it, the universal emoji for gotcha. The problem was obvious the second I looked closer. The font was too clean, the kerning off by just enough to irritate anyone who stares at code all day. The bank's real app had switched to a darker UI in June. After an update I remembered because it broke half my Face ID logins. This screenshot showed the old layout, and the transaction ID in tiny gray numbers. It began with 0000, a string no real bank would ever allow. The complaint draft hr.pdf was worse. Not in craft, but in intent. It was already formatted like a formal HR statement, with headers, numbered paragraphs, and a closing line. I am submitting this not to punish Max, but to protect others. The language was smooth, lawyerly even. But the author metadata betrayed it. Author, Lena. Device, iPad. OS, she hadn't even stripped the source. I leaned back in my chair, the breath leaving my body like a tire leak. She wasn't improvising anymore. She was building an arsenal. Thursday morning loomed like a guillotine. HR, a witness. Her draft complaint ready to fire. I had the files, the metadata, the EXIFS, the receipts. But my mind played out the scene. Me in a gray room, her in righteous posture, a third party swearing they'd seen me with someone else. I could already hear the murmurs outside the conference door. He's done. So I did what desperate men do when logic isn't enough. I rehearsed. I set my laptop on the kitchen table, opened Zoom recordings, and played them back to myself. My face, time-stamped, July 14th, mid-call, explaining a bug to a client. The small thumbnail of my teammate, the very one now listed as additional attendee for Thursday's HR meeting. If they were the witness Lena had recruited, then reality itself was bending. Because at the time I was allegedly with someone else, they had been in the digital square beside mine. Ole called around midnight, his voice tight. She's doubling down. I heard from someone in her circle. She's calling you dangerous now. Not just unfaithful, dangerous. I almost laughed, but it cracked in my throat. She knows I have the files. She knows. Then she's betting you won't use them, he said. She's betting you'll keep playing clean while she rolls in mud. Stop playing her game on her terms. I'm not putting this online, I said. Then take it to the only arena that matters. HR friends. Whoever she's poisoning. Show them. Make them see. Dennis texted right after, if you need the living room again, it's open. But I didn't want another jury of friends. I wanted the people with keys to my future. The job, the family, the sliver of reputation left. I built a single folder, truth_meeting. Inside, I placed IMG_2024-07-14 open parenthesis, original, unaltered close parenthesis, chat_recording.move, screen recording, cursor visible, calendar_, invite.ics plus screenshot of Zoom Square, proof_final.psd with its incriminating layers, bank_proof.png side by side with the real app update, release notes highlighted, complaint_draft_hr.pdf with author metadata visible, no commentary, no editorial, just the files and a readme.txt. All files unedited. Metadata intact. Ask me for passwords if you need to verify the originals. When Thursday came, I wore the only suit I hadn't touched since weddings were still in season. My reflection looked like someone attending his own trial. The HR office was colder than usual. Or maybe it was me. The rep was there, flanked by a colleague from compliance. Lena sat across from me, composed, hair tied back in a style she only used when she wanted authority. Next to her was the witness, my teammate, Nadia. My stomach folded in on itself. We'll keep this professional, the HR rep began. Each side presents their information. Then we assess. Lena went first. She slid printed screenshots across the table like cards. The fake chat, the bank transaction, a typed statement with Nadia's name at the bottom. She spoke calmly, her voice breaking only when it served the sentence. I didn't want to be here, but I can't let him hurt someone else the way he hurt me. I looked at Nadia. She didn't meet my eyes. The HR rep turned to me. Your response? I opened my laptop, projected the screen, and walked them through my folder, file by file, the PSD layers, the screen recording with the cursor jitter, the bank app UI mismatch, the author metadata on her complaint. When I finished, the room was quiet. Not vindicated quiet, not victorious quiet. Just the heavy pause of people rearranging the furniture in their heads. Finally, Nadia spoke. I never wrote that statement, she said, voice thin. She sent it to me, told me it was a draft, said it was just, if anyone asked. I didn't know she would. She broke off. Lena's mask cracked. For a second, her hand twitched toward her phone like it might still save her. The HR rep exhaled, long and low. We'll adjourn here, Max. Thank you for your documentation. Lena, we'll follow up separately. I packed up my laptop with hands that wanted to shake but didn't. As I left the room, I knew it wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Reputations don't heal because a folder of files says so. But the ground had shifted, just enough that I could stand without sinking. Outside, the city's air felt different, brittle with late summer heat. My phone buzzed before I'd reached the street. A new cloud notification. Another upload from her device. Its name was simple, almost laughably so. confession_draft.txt. I didn't open it on the sidewalk. I walked 3 blocks with the phone buzzing in my pocket like a bad conscience. The file name etched in my brain. Confession_draft.txt. Too blunt, too theatrical. At home, I set the laptop on the desk, plugged it in like ritual, and clicked. The text file was short, almost elegant in its coldness. I admit I made things up, but only because I was scared of losing him. If I confess first, I can control the narrative. Say, I never meant to ruin his life, I just panicked. If this doesn't land, pivot back to, he manipulated me into thinking I needed to fake things. At the bottom, a line like a footnote. Delete after sending final version. Don't forget autosync. The words blurred on my screen. It wasn't the vindication people imagine, where trumpets blare and the villain confesses in neon letters. It was worse. Flat, bureaucratic self-awareness. She had scripted even her repentance. I zipped it into the folder and stared at the progress bar until it turned green. Dennis insisted on another gathering that evening. People need closure, he said, or at least context. I wasn't sure I had either to give, but I went. His apartment smelled like coffee gone cold. The same bowl for phones waited on the counter. Ira, Svitlana, Pavlo, and Ole sat in a semicircle. Their faces the mix of curiosity and dread you see at funerals before the eulogy. I opened my laptop. No theatrics. Just the file name glowing. Confession_draft.txt. I read it aloud, slowly, without emphasis. When I finished, no one spoke for a full minute. Then Svitlana whispered, she planned even how to admit she planned. Ira covered her face with her hands. I defended her. I swore to people you were twisting things. And she, her voice broke. Ole leaned forward. You're done hiding, Max. This isn't about hurting her. It's about stopping her from hurting you again. I'm not posting it online, I said. Not online, Dennis agreed. But you send it to HR, to the ones who can't ignore it. So I did. I drafted the briefest email of my life. Additional document attached. Source. Shared archive. Metadata intact. I attached confession_draft.txt and hit send before my courage could evaporate. The fallout wasn't cinematic. No dramatic group chats exploding. No chorus of apologies flooding in. It was quieter. The next morning, the HR rep called, not emailed, called, and said, we've concluded our review. There will be no further action against you. Please take tomorrow off. Their tone was polite, not warm. Protection, not absolution. By evening, Lena's accounts had gone private. Mutual friends posted vague quotes about truth coming to light and being careful who you trust. Not one tagged me. Not one apologized outright. But the silence was different now, not accusatory, just absence. like people stepping back from a fire they'd crowded too close to. That night, Ole came over with takeout and a bottle of something too sweet. We ate on the floor, the files still open on my laptop like trophies I didn't want. You know, he said between bites, you could sue her. Defamation, emotional distress, whatever. You've got evidence stacked like bricks. I shook my head. I don't want a war. I want peace. He clinked his plastic cup against mine. Then let this be the last battle. Later, when he left, I sat alone with the confession draft. I hovered over the delete key. It would have been easy to erase it, to unclutter my digital life, but I didn't. I dragged it into truth meeting and zipped it shut. Because truth, once uncovered, isn't a weapon. It's an archive. And I needed to remember. Not just that she lied, but that I survived. The following week, a final notification blinked across my screen. A sync error. Her device had stopped pushing files. The connection was broken at last. For the first time in months, I slept through the night without dreaming of blue bubbles and fake hearts.